Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to another exciting episode. I am Aliza Naqvi, and today we have quite an exciting personality. And if you are attempting F7, which is the financial reporting paper, in March or any other session, then you are in luck because this is Get to Know Your Tutor, because he has exciting tips for you and techniques for your exam. He is Mr. Iqbal Bhabha. He has been teaching for over 10 years, and he is the director of UA groups as well as the visiting faculty for Bahira University. Now, let's get to know him, but I would also like to mention that he is currently teaching financial reporting in Tabanis Academy as well. So let's welcome our new tutor, Mr. Iqbal Bhabha. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, and thank you so much, Aliza, for having me in this show. And I would take this platform as an opportunity to send my message to the students at large.
Thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thank you so much.
Let's get straight into it.
Yes.
Financial reporting exam.
Yes, financial reporting exams.
What does that mean to you?
The financial reporting exams actually is all about the exams conducted by the ACCA to test the knowledge of the students surrounding the various ISs and the IFRSs, as well as the consolidation and the interpretation of the financial statement. And mainly the ACCA actually focus on the testing of the students surrounding the preparation of the single entity financial statements. So there are lots of ISs and the IFRSs, and the ACCA usually would like this place to be in middle between the F3 and the SBR paper. So if the students are not serious at the F3 level, so this is the opportunity for the students to get serious in this paper and to actually get a good marks in the SBR paper.
Is it as stressful as it just sounded right now?
Yes, sometimes the full abbreviation of the IS is not International Accounting Standard, but is I am stressed. So this actually paper may be stressful for the students who actually does not have the disciplinary approach from day one. So this may be stressful if the students would not follow the instructions and the guidance by the given by the instructor.
All right. Well, this is the first exam the students opt for in their skills module. Like you're done with your F1, F2, F3, and then this is the first usual subject that people opt for. So that is like a transitioning phase for students. They are coming from a knowledge module towards a skill, and it does require a large number of skills to be in that exam and to pass it as well. So what advice do you have for those students who are just attempting F7 after their F3 exam, and this is their first exam in the skills module?
I would advise students to actually to be disciplined from day one. I would advise only this kind of students. The students usually are motivated when they take the admission in F7, but the motivation would actually wiped away after 2 to 3 days. They need to develop the second stage of the motivation, and that is discipline. The third stage of the motivation is consistency. These kind of the certifications, be it the Chartered Accountancy of the UK, or be it the Chartered Accountancy of Pakistan, be it the ICMA, be it CIMA, even be it ACCA, these are certified qualification. These qualification does not require students only to be intellectual, but requires students to develop the emotional intelligence. That is the EQ part of the different dynamics of the personality. So the students, my advice to the students is to develop the disciplinary approach from day one. They have to be disciplined. Our students, either the global students or the local students, would do what? Would pick up the study text at the end of the session. That is the last month of the exam, the last month of the semester. They usually pick up the study text. They usually, for example, download all the past papers from the ACC website. They don't know about the technical articles. They don't know about the examiner comments. The examiner comments are the minds, is the mind of the examiner. So definitely I would advise students to develop the disciplinary approach. If you are, for example, if you are below average student, if you don't have the intellectual capacity, so don't worry, this qualification is still for you, because this qualification requires you to be disciplined, consistent, persistent, and a slight bit of light-hearted approach.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So with that, I want you to address a little bit of the curriculum as well. Which area do you think is mostly that where students face difficulty in solving or understanding the concepts, and where students do lack sometimes, like a specific area in the whole syllabus of F7?
Aliza, if you would ask me the specific area, I would suggest students to open up the examiner comments, and the examiner comments are full of the areas which the students lack in an exam. Believe me, I usually was shocked sometimes to see the most silly mistakes that the students does in an exam. I would address this kind of the silly mistakes first before I would actually come to the specific area of the examination. For example, if the examiner asks you to, for example, gives the information about the company, that the company has purchased a non-current asset on 1st July 2006, and the reporting period is 31st December 2006. So students are supposed to calculate the depreciation within for the 6 months, that is from 1st July to 31st December 2006. But you students does what? Charge the whole year depreciation to that particular company's year. So that's a silly mistake. That shows that the students are not actually have been selected throughout their semester, or for example the students are not focused on the selected area. These are the silly mistakes that the students usually develop when they are under stress, when they are under pressure. Likewise, for example, if the company issues the multiple times of the ordinary shares in a year, so definitely it would affect the WAOS, that is the weighted average number of ordinary shares, that is the denominator of the EPS formula, and that would be affected. But the students does what? They take the opening shares or for example the ending shares, and they incorporate these number of shares in the formula. So these are the silly mistakes. Some of the silly mistakes that the students does is, for example, if the examiner gives a clear instruction that the depreciation should be charged as the part of the cost of sales. It's a clear instruction from the examiner, and this holds 1 mark. And the students does what? The students actually incorporates the depreciation expense as a separate head, or for example be the part of the administrative expense. So these are the clear guidelines and the instructions. And there are other silly mistakes. For example, under the ratio analysis, the students does not read the question. I advise students to read the question thrice. First, before you attempt the question. Second, during the actually reading of or during the brainstorming of the solution. And third, after actually you attempt the question, just to make sure that you are in sync. You are in sync with the question. And the students does what? The examiner, from my attempt in back in 2013 till now, the examiners are after the students just to actually read the question thrice, 4 times, 5 times, only to actually sync your answer with the question. So student does these kind of silly mistakes. In IS 36, the impairment, where the formula states that you are supposed to actually take the recoverable amount, or the, for example, the fair value in use. The students does kind of the silly mistakes in calculating this. Even IS2, that is the inventory, that says that the inventory should be measured at lower of cost or NRV, and the students does what? Does take the lower of cost or the replacement cost. So these are the silly mistakes. When it comes to the specific area of the examination, I would suggest students to go for the ISS, that is the International Accounting Standards, and the IFRSs first. And the sequence matters a lot. Sometimes the student starts their F7 paper with IS 33, and that exactly shows that the students are not actually organized in that manner. The students should start their F7 paper from IS 16, which is actually already examined in F3, which is actually the relatively easier IS to start with, and which actually would help in other kind of an ISs that would actually further develop the minds of the students. For example, if you have develop the expertise in IS 16, so that expertise would help you in learning the IS 36, would help you in learning the IS 40, would help you in learning the IFRS 5. So the sequence would matter a lot. And after covering all ISs and the IFRSs, I would encourage students to pick up the preparation of the single entity financial statement question. That is, I think, the section C.
Yes.
The question, the 20 marks question can appear in an exam. And after that, the students are supposed to actually pick up the consolidation. That is the consolidated SFP and the consolidated SPL. And finally, the student should actually conclude this paper by going through the interpretation of the financial statement. Mostly students find some of the ISs difficult. For example, the IFRS 9, the financial instrument, difficult. The IS 23, although the IS 23 is relatively shorter, but it actually makes the life of the students more complex. And the various ISs, for example, the IFRS 10, the business combination, that is the consolidation. And so that varies from students to students, that how actually students perceive the kind of the ISS, but these kind of the specific areas that the students needs to focus on. And I think the students would, if addressed this kind of an issue, would be able to clear this paper.
But that was very in-depth and detailed. Thank you so much. I'm sure that answers so many queries to so many students, and I'm glad you went in depth into that. But before that, you mentioned that it is a good qualification for those who are not that good students, who are average students as well.
Yes.
And that ACCA is a smart qualification. You have to be smart with it. But at the same time, those students who are average, what techniques should they be opting for? And because it is a smart qualification, it does not mean that you simply have to become a bookworm. with that, students should also engage socially as well. They should be socially active, and because the emotional intelligence aspect also comes into the paper, so you need to be relaxed, you need to be less stressed and more comfortable while you're attempting it. So taking all of these points into mind, what advice would you have for students who are not generally very smart but are also giving their best for ACC exams, or average but are also trying their best?
See, Eliza, if I would have my 10 years back, I would live my life very differently than I have lived. Although I've chilled my life up to the extent...
Chilling your life.
Oh, yeah, chilling your life. But honestly speaking, I would, as far as the social aspect of the life is concerned for the students, I would advise the students to engage socially as much as possible. As much as possible. I don't want the students to actually be bookworms. The corporate world needs the ACCA qualified person a very different way. I would encourage students even to have to have a look at the Facebook, to have the LinkedIn once a day, even before you, for example, studying in or before, for example, you are going to appear in the exam. And I would students to actually engage in these kind of the social activities frequently, because the corporate world needs a person who is balanced. Not the person should be skewed in terms of the cramming of the bookish knowledge. The person needs to be smart enough to actually show to the interviewer, to the prospective employer, the better personality, the balanced personality. And I would encourage students to indulge in socially as much as possible, number one. Number two, I would advise students to free yourself before a week of the exam and visualize yourself. I used to, in my time, I used to visualize myself that what if, I used to think of that, what if the examiner gives the question paper different from my expectation, what I would do? Would I actually be looking for the washroom to actually vomit? Or for example, would I be feeling the nausea? What I would do? Or would I be looking around my whole friends that what they are doing? Or for example, giving a non-verbal cues to my friend that in the next attempt we are supposed to find another teacher for this. So what I'm going to do? So you need to visualize. These are the certified qualification. These requires emotionally stable student that you are supposed to free from stress, you are supposed to free from any kind of the pressure. And I would encourage parents also to develop this kind of a skills amongst the students. The high pressure in this qualification requires you to be emotionally stable in a same way. So you have to visualize yourself before a week of the exam. You have to end your course outline, irrespective of the coverage. You have to end it. You have to give yourself a deadline, and you have to visualize yourself that what I am going to do if the paper is, for example, would come out of my expectation. What if that I, for example, would have forgotten my calculator at home? What if I will do that I will lost my bike outside the campus? What I will do? I would recall the day when I was appearing in P4 paper, that is the advanced financial management paper, the P4 paper, and I realized that the student sitting in front of me started doing the dry cough. And I don't know that whether it is because of the tension or because of the stress, but that dry cough disturbed me throughout the 3 hours of the paper. And that's nothing that I could do about it. And the P4 paper requires the immense focus and the immense calculation. So that actually that dry cough of the student would actually disturb me throughout the 3 hours of the exam, and I could not do anything about it. And after the 3 hours of the exam completed, that dry cough went away, I don't know where. So always remember that these kind of the scenario may appear in for you too. So you have to be mentally, emotionally stable. If you are average students, if you are below average students, if you are above average students, this qualification mean for all of the students. Only what you need to do is to pick up the study text from day one, pick up the past papers from day one, listen to the instructors from day one, and solve all the MCQs from day one. Appear in the exam before the exam. That is called a mock. Give yourself a tough time and appear in the exam. So these are the techniques. And number two is be emotionally stable. Visualize yourself, imagine yourself, sleep well, eat well, talk with your family and talk with your friends. and don't open up the past papers, don't open up any new area, don't open up any new topic even before the day of the exam. For example, if you get to know from your friend that the 14 or the 15 marks of the paper has been missed, so don't worry, still the 85 marks is in your hand. So get yourself motivated, and you have to set a deadline that I'm not going to touch any new area before a day of the exam, even before a week of the exam. Chill yourself and don't actually consider this kind of a paper a war. This is not a war, this is just a paper. A corporate life would require you more emotionally stable person when it comes to the more intense pressure. So this is just a paper. Change the strategy. If you have, for example, failed in this attempt, change the strategy, change the schedule, and appear again. And if the gods will be there, you will be able to pass this paper.
All right, thank you so much. And you did mention a bit about going to the paper again right now, which was my next question. And you also mentioned that it's not a war. So if somebody does fail, it is not the end of the world, and the world is not going to collapse. So with that, what if it is somebody's second attempt towards the FR exam? What would you recommend to those students? And you mentioned changing the strategy. So what strategies do you now advise for the students to follow? Because it is your second attempt, then obviously the students are emotionally a little bit down, and they do need a little bit of motivation to get back up. So a little bit for them.
Take my lectures and you will feel amazed about it. On a serious note, I cannot be so much serious with this kind of a 15 minutes. So this little bit approach and a light-hearted approach is very much necessary.
And that is also the balance you mentioned.
Yes,
you cannot be serious your whole life.
Yes. So I have forgotten your question. Please do ask me again.
A little bit motivation for those who are attempting again.
See, I would actually address this kind of a question with one of the example. For example, if you are in the corporate world, if you are, for example, in the corporate world and you have achieved the chief executive position, that the CEO, that the highest level of C-suite level position, that I am currently occupying this position in my firm. What if the board actually launches some of the product and the product fails in the market? What would you do? Would you actually shut down your company? Would you actually discontinue your company? Would you actually withdraw the product from the market? No. You would change the strategy and relaunch the product. Same case. You would relaunch the product. You will be shocked to know that the companies launches at least 8 to 9 times the product. And that's the time that the product actually is launched successfully in the market. Sometimes they change the discounting strategy. Sometimes they change the pricing strategy. Sometimes they change the penetration strategy. Sometimes they change the cross-selling strategy. They actually adopt the multiple strategy and finally launch the product. That I don't mean to say this, that you are supposed to actually appear 9 times of this F7 paper in order to clear this paper. I don't mean to say, but at least change the strategy. See, I would advise the students, this certification requires some heat. If you can't bear the heat, get out of the kitchen. I'm sorry for being rude, but that qualification requires some heat. You have to bear the heat, and that heat requires a methodological approach. You need to change the strategy rather than, for example, locking yourself in a room and stop talking with the family members. This is not the strategy. So you need to come out of the pressure. Parents need to understand that this certification requires the immense pressure that the students are able to digest. So what you need to do is change the strategy, appear in the paper. Look for yourself that where the room for the improvement is, and appear in the paper again, and finally you will be able to clear this paper.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This has been an electrifying session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And I hope that the students are able to gain all your advices and pass their exams, because this was the motivation they needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me in this show. Thank you.
Thank you for taking out the time.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that is all for today. I will catch you all in some other episode. Till then, stay tuned. Bye.